most important thing for you to invest in that will pay you back more than anything else you put energy into in terms of longevity and well-being is relationships. So we focused last time on simple ways to put energy into improving your relationships. By now, you probably know that my MO is simplicity. Most people try to complicate things, which results in inaction and inconsistency and no progress. So simplicity always wins. But I also know that relationships can feel complicated. They're associated with emotions and hurt feelings and frustrations and giving and receiving and love languages and all the things that make them feel complicated. So there are 3 things to watch out for when it comes to overcomplicating relationships. Number 1, don't keep score. Let me tell you a story. There had been a lot of things circulating on social media about moms carrying the mental load of the house. And a lot of it makes sense. I'm the one that gets the phone calls from the school. I'm the one who schedules the parent-teacher conferences and signs up for the sports teams and puts the games in the calendar. I'm the one that makes the mental notes of when the boys have a field trip and need to bring their lunch instead of buy their lunch and all the things. And I remember seeing these things on Instagram. Some of them were funny, some of them were serious, but about moms carrying the mental load and dads typically not understanding what that really entails. So one night, I had gotten an email from one of my son's baseball coaches with the game schedule. If you're a parent, you know how long it takes to just enter all those games into the calendar. So it had sat in my inbox for a few days, and I finally cleared enough mental space to be able to open up that email and input it into the calendar. My husband walked in, and I was annoyed. And I started in on him about how I have to carry the mental load of all of it. And I kind of went through my list of, I've been keeping track of this and that, and I get the phone calls from the school and the schedule and all of these things that he wouldn't even know how to organize because they're not even on his radar. I'd allowed myself to get a little caught up in the trend that I'd seen on social media and allowed myself to start mentally tallying all the things I was frustrated about. And so my husband's awesome. He took it well, and he responded with kind of like, I understand that there's so much that you do that I don't even know to take on. But then he said, but what about me taking on the entire mental load of our finances and our taxes? And kind of went on to list all the things that I had totally not even considered because I was so focused on keeping tabs on my side of the score. And he was right. I don't even know the first thing about starting in on our finances or our taxes. I don't even think about it. Right or wrong, I get an email related to taxes and I forward it right over to him. So the point is not that there's no room for communication or for reallocating things in your marriage if they feel off kilter. The point is that when we keep score, everybody loses. For one, remember that which we focus on expands. So when we're focusing on all the things we feel like our partner isn't doing, that seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And frankly, it's blinding. We miss things. It becomes so easy to promote resentment, and resentment often breeds more resentment. Again, that which we focus on expands. And again, this doesn't mean that there may not be room for a reevaluation of what everybody is contributing to the relationship. But what I want you to watch out for here is that keeping score. When we keep score, everybody loses. The second thing to watch out for that can be a sneaky way of overcomplicating a relationship is to be careful about boundaries. Again, this is another example of something that's trendy on social media or out there in the world. This idea of setting boundaries and to be very protective over your own happiness and well-being. Now that's great. I want you to be protective over your happiness and well-being. But people's understanding of boundaries is often very much more damaging than it is productive. So let me give you an example. There was somebody I was working with who really wanted to work on their relationship with her mom. She loves her mom. Now, this person I was working with is an adult, but there were aspects of her relationship with her mom that weren't healthy for her. So there are really 2 ways she could approach this. She could set a really clear boundary with her mom, a really strict boundary that said, if you bring this up or if you go there, then that's it. I'm gone. Now, what do you think the chances are that that other person is 100% going to be able to stick to that boundary? Whatever it is. Whether it be something more serious in your relationship or the boundaries that I might try to set with my 6-year-old. If you don't put the iPad away right now, then you're going to lose all these privileges. Now, I know very well that my 6-year-old isn't going to be able to stick to that boundary. So I'm setting myself and that relationship up for failure. Now, the other way she could approach this with her mom is to set a boundary for herself. To first ask herself, what are the aspects of my relationship with my mom that I love and that I value? And when I asked her that question, what are the aspects of your relationship with your mom that you love? She told me, my mom is always so creative. She always tries to bring joy, and she always has so many fun things planned on holidays and always wants to spend time with me. But just like with any relationships, there's aspects of that other person that maybe you don't value. But in a lot of cases, don't let the aspects that you don't value interfere with the ones that you do. Now listen, of course there are going to be cases of abuse or, real serious issues that this doesn't apply to. So you have to proceed with intelligence here. But if you want to maintain a relationship with someone that you love, you can decide to either set that boundary for them that you know that they're probably going to cut across and it's probably going to have a negative effect on the relationship. You can decide to get annoyed every time that happens. Or you can decide to work on the way that you deal with letting it affect you. The more you focus on those aspects that you don't value, and the more you try to sit and hold those strict boundaries for, if this happens, that's it, the bigger those things tend to become in your mind. You're going to have the understanding that, listen, I love this person. This is an important relationship to me, and I love this aspect of this person. And I know that the other aspect over there is one that I don't value, and I'm going to choose to put my energy and attention over here. And then I'm going to do what I need to do to protect myself from the aspect that I don't value. I'll tell you another personal story. My brother, my youngest brother, I love him dearly. He's one of the coolest people I know. He's this world traveler. He's one of the smartest people I know. And he's terrible with staying in touch with the rest of my family. We're all in a group chat. My family lives all over the country. And, we stay pretty connected. My mom can usually get a hold of most of us pretty easily. We stay pretty involved in each other's lives. But my brother is usually pretty quiet on these group chats. Now, I could choose to hold this boundary and say, well, if he doesn't respond to me and if he doesn't make an effort, then I'm not going to keep putting myself out there to make an effort. It's a losing battle. He just doesn't value staying in that close contact the way the rest of my family does. And I can kind of hold that against him and say, well, I tried and I reached out. And if he doesn't feel strongly enough about me or about the relationship, then that's it. Or I can tell myself and I can focus on the fact that, listen, that's not how he shows his love and connection. I know he loves me. I know he loves our family. He's just frankly not good at getting back to people. And do I think that he's ever going to be great at that? Probably not. But do I think that he's working on improving it? Probably. Yeah, it's probably gotten a little bit better. But he's never going to be at the level where I want him to be with that, and that's okay. But if that's the thing I choose to kind of rate our relationship on, everybody loses. I think every relationship has that one thing that it's easy to use to rate how the other person is doing in the relationship. It's easy for us to focus on what we're not getting instead of what we are getting. But in many cases, you're going to come out so much further ahead if you work on your response and your reaction rather than waiting for the other person to change. Again, there are going to be situations in relationships that are just unhealthy, that this wouldn't apply to. So please defer to intelligence here. But just be thoughtful about the boundaries you're putting in place. Are they going to strengthen the good parts of the relationship, or are they going to amplify the bad parts? All right, number three, sneaky way of overcomplicating relationships. Remember that people forget. Let's go back to my brother. Again, he's one of my favorite people in the world. I love him so much. I know he loves me. But it really bothers my mom that he's really bad at getting in touch. So she's talked to him about this. I've talked to him about this. And we've seen times where he seems to be making a little bit more of an effort with it. Just like anything else, though, it's hard to make consistent improvements. Think about how hard it's been for you in your own life to follow your process goals that you've started for yourself. It's not because you don't care about the impact the process goals are going to make. It's because we're all overloaded. We're doing a lot of things, which means that we forget and we fall off track. I've just seen so many times people come into me and saying, I talked to this other person about it and they know that thing bothers me, or they told me they were going to work on it. And now I see them making the same mistake or falling back into that same old habit. And then it becomes so easy to write those people off and say, well, they must just not care about me enough to put in the effort. They must just not care about the relationship. But I think we're very quick to forget that making improvements is hard. And it's totally normal to fall off track. Give people the opportunity to improve and give people the opportunity to forget and fall off track. Now, with all that being said, these 3 principles: don't keep score, be careful with boundaries, and remember that people forget. These are applicable to those relationships that are important to us in life, that we value enough to put that work and energy into. This doesn't mean that everyone in your life gets a free pass. It means that for the people that we love, who we want to invest in having our relationships be as connected and meaningful as possible. So it may be worth looking at whether you're falling prey to one of these 3 overcomplication traps. Take a minute right now and just think about one important relationship in your life that seems complicated. We all have one. And I just want you to first ask yourself, is this relationship worth it to me? And if not, there's your answer. But if the answer is yes, just take a minute and think about whether any of these 3 traps might be coming into play. And I want you to just come up with one thing you want to focus on or adjust in the way you approach your side of that relationship. And remember, when you work on it, it will improve.